else could see that Sean said something. Never mind. Okay. Okay. Okay, so your recording has started, yes.
Yes.
And the next topic I had was to look at the support matrix again. We went through it last time and made some improvements. I was surprised that we don't have manage unmanage in the list there.
I thought we added that to that at one point.
I think we maybe talked about it.
Where does the support matrix actually live at this point? It's generated out of our tree, right? If I remember correctly.
So yes, so it now comes out of doc source reference.
So like a YAML file or something.
There's an INI file in there, and it gets pulled in by another RST file in the source tree.
You know, when you Google for Cinder support matrix, the first thing you find is still the old wiki thing that's like, says do not use. Actually, I think I might have put that.
There's like quite a few links that's like the Cinder stuff.
Yeah, there seems like
previous branches that I have to look for the new ones.
yeah, it seems like the first, I guess,
Weird.
because they're the most popular ones. So Queens comes up
Queens
all
a
the
lot,
time.
yeah.
That latest.
Yeah,
Well, the
Queens
first thing
and Pike are like the
Yeah.
most.
Well, I found that the first thing on the mine was the old wiki page, which is like,
That's
And
real.
that's another one. It took me a while to decouple the wiki versus the.
Yeah, there's sound showing up, so I'm not sure why Sophia thinks we're muted.
no. Blue James maybe.
It says I'm talking. Talking? Yep.
Oh, it might be because you show up twice. She's looking at the first one. Like you're muted.
Oh, okay. Damn you and your stable backports, Walt. Oh, wait. Okay. So maybe I should make sure that. No, when I search it, the first one that comes up is the right one. Oh, but it's for Rocky. Latest. Which I know that one is out of date.
Should we consider removing the wiki one, placing it with the top thing that says go over here?
Well, we edit the page, then everything will still be there in the history. So for some reason, we needed to go back.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So I
because
think
I don't want to really lose the history.
So I think you could just edit the page so that it just has the pointer, the redirect. But if anybody really wanted to,
Well, this is really out of date for anybody that reads it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think you. Right. It's just I hate deleting stuff.
I think a bunch of these drivers aren't even in Cinder at this point.
Right, but part of it is I didn't want to lose that history.
Yeah.
Or maybe creating a subpage under that so that it's not
like the arc, so you have to
archived, so
click
that you
through to get to the
click through
stuff.
to get to it. You know, and change the header to be, this is deprecated. This link is old. Go here. If you want historical data, go here. Maybe do it that way. Okay. Does anybody have any objections to that?
We could even do like a 2-click thing. So you click first, and it's like, seriously, you're about to look at outdated stuff. don't do this.
Still talks about Nova volume.
So I'm right that we don't have manage on here, am I? No.
This thing's really hard to read, to be honest.
Go back to JVHA, revert to snapshot.
I think you were right.
Detach, volume migration, and provisioning. In the list of all functionality. So. Which I can probably.
So did you want to do manage volume and snapshot?
Yeah, probably should.
There's the separate part of list manageable, which is not quite as important, but it is a thing.
Would somebody do manage, unmanaged without the list manageable?
Yeah, we had that for RBP for a while.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else did, but because I think when we first made manage, we didn't have the list thing. It was added later. That was some obviously tacked on later on.
Is there separate support for list manageable snapshot, list manageable?
Yeah, in theory. I don't know how we might want to show that, but looks like, well, there are a few drivers that did get manageable volumes that didn't do snapshots.
Okay.
Scale IO thing is in that group.
Oh, but that's going away.
Is it?
I thought Scale IO was one of the.
It got renamed. The VX Flex. Oh, that's a pretty big thing. I'd be surprised. Looks like most people that did get manageable volumes also did snapshots.
Was it Dell EMC VFlex?
Yeah, they renamed it. VX Flex OS.
I get the feeling that Dell EMC is the max.
Or Extreme.
VFlex there it is. Okay, no, you're right, it's still supported. My oh.
So I am wondering,
So much IO.
for some reason I feel like, well, there's something about this. The extend attached volume thing.
Yes.
Don't all drivers do that?
All.
There's like 2 in this chart that say they don't do it.
So at one point, I added the code in Brick to do the volume extension for an attached volume.
Right.
And The limiting factor was Cinder's API didn't allow it.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone put a patch in that basically bypassed that, removed that restriction. And I don't know how many volume drivers actually tested that capability.
So is it really true that like every driver other than NetApp on tap does it, and like that one doesn't?
Well, if they have an extend volume,
Yeah,
then
it's up to the driver code.
it's up to the driver. It either works for that back end or it doesn't.
I'll look at
Extend
it 'cause
volume is
I-
called, and then Postbrick does its work, and then that gets handed up through Nova, and there's a whole chain of events that has to happen. And I think even the guest VM has to do something there to recognize that the SCSI device is resized too, but at that point, there's nothing we can do about it. I don't know how far along that went. If Nova had to make some changes to it.
Yeah, I'm not
because
sure.
Midford itself has to go, oh, this is resized, and
I mean, I'm pretty sure they did the part that rescans it at the libvirt layer, but I don't know that anybody ever did the worrying about the inside the guest part. I don't know.
I don't know about
I feel like the last time we talked about that was in Paris,
Well, there's
Yeah.
not really there's not really a good way to do it, I don't think.
or it might have been Sydney. Anyway, we talked about the Cinder wanting to send a, can't remember what they call it, it's like an out-of-band notification or something that would tell the guest to rescan the SCSI bus.
Right, but unless you're running something in the guest that's going to do
Yeah, I
that.
don't,
Right.
I don't think anything like that exists, but I know the API call was to Cinder itself, and then there had to have been some hook from Cinder to tell Nova, hey,
Yeah,
this has been resized.
because Nova has to do like an iSCSI rescan.
Yeah, and I think someone actually did that work.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that piece is in there,
Yeah.
but you still have to do something within the guest too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after the whole
So
from back end through libvirt has recognized that
Yeah.
it's resized, the guest, someone inside there has to do
And
something.
that's fine.
Yeah,
so then that NetApp driver actually does opt out of that support.
Oh, really?
Like it specifically says support
Yeah, support.
false.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know why, but the chart's right, I guess.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me wonder, is there a CI test for this?
I think there is one of some sort. It's been a long time since I looked at it, but
If Nova added support for it, then there must be. Those guys are adamant about adding CI for everything that they do, which
So was the answer that all drivers should support it? Or,
think- well, I don't know that we have to like require it, but
is it something that is or is not done supported by all drivers?
there's nothing special in the driver itself other than extend volume.
Okay.
so there's a flag that the driver has that says it supports it or not. Like in this NetApp driver, that flag is turned off for some reason. But we would assume that most drivers would just be able to turn it on and it would kind of work.
Okay.
Um,
Do we want?
okay, so that NetApp driver is the only driver that even has that flag in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Everyone else just defaults it to on, I guess, and doesn't even set it.
So what happens? Does the Cinder API look for that flag and says nope? Or
You can schedule on it in the capabilities filter. I don't know why, but somebody. Apparently, that's the only place it's used is the capabilities filter. All seems kind of strange.
well, I
but-
guess if you're extending a volume, it has to go through the scheduler because we need to account for the use of
It
space.
does now. I think it didn't originally, but I think it
Yeah.
does now.
Oh, yeah, we had to add that because that was one of those cases where you could overextend your storage
Yeah.
because it wasn't being checked in the schedule.
Yeah, Cinder
Yeah.
wasn't accounted.
And there actually is a test for this in Tempest itself for attached extent.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, CI that's volume extended path volume.
Perfect.
So it sounds like that's not really one that we need to add to the support matrix.
No, it's already in there. But
Oh,
that's why I was trying to figure out if it was accurate because it was kind of a weird looking
okay.
thing. Because it says true for every driver other than one.
Oh,
That's why I was trying to figure out what the whole deal was. The one that I would question having in there though is snapshot attachment.
Okay.
Just because I don't know, is that a feature that people say I want to go to Cinder and attach a snapshot? Like
I don't know.
I know they can, but I think I don't know.
I don't understand.
That feature's never struck me as very
Purpose of
well
that
formed.
is-
I think the main purpose of it was to implement backup.
uh,
I don't know why it's like a first-class Cinder API feature, honestly, because the whole concept of Cinder was that you attach volumes and not snapshots.
Not snapshots.
And
yeah.
then EMC said, "Oh, we want to do snapshots too," and we put it in there. But I don't really know why we put it in there.
I don't either.
It seems like an odd one to advertise there because I don't know if anyone has ever said, "I want to go do that." But maybe. I'm just going through this list trying to see what makes sense.
okay. Well, that was the point of this is,
I mean, we probably need to figure out if there's things we should add to this list too, which
Right.
is quite possible.
yeah, so we've got the manage unmanaged list for snapshots and volumes. I've added that as a to-do to add. You most recently wrote a driver. What else are we missing?
Those are totally valid. It's, doesn't manage.
We haven't added a lot of
Can't really
new.
think of anything new, and I like Eric's point about the snapshot attachment accuracy. The volume from the snapshot.
Yeah.
Well, and all of them that are listed in this matrix are considered to not be actual requirements.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the reason they're in the matrix. Is
Right, 'cause
they're
we took
not
out all
required
the-
functions. The required ones are all at the top
Yeah.
and are assumed to be functional. So is NFS still the redheaded stepchild there?
The only thing that NFS is missing as a major feature is encryption support,
Okay.
which I actually started working on a while ago, and I need to get back to it. But that was never even in this matrix, I don't think. Because we always assumed that you could do that on all the drivers.
Okay.
Surprised at how many check marks are in here for consistency groups. I realized that many drivers actually did that.
I wonder if I can remove the status row. So I think that's part of the.
The thing that says status optional.
Yeah, because they're all optional, but I think that that's part of the INI file that's required.
Hmm.
I don't know that I can remove that. I've got the driver removal history. I think that's useful to keep. Yeah, so anytime I remove a driver, I update that list.
Not too long of a list.
Well, that's what I always get confused is the Copperhead storage driver had Scale IO support.
Oh yeah, that was that whole
Yeah.
software-defined thing, right?
And DRBD manage went away.
Because it was replaced with the other DRBD thing.
Yeah. The Lin Beta driver.
But my office was happy.
Frickin' E-Series driver, which
Oh man.
that got removed right about the time Lenovo bought a E-Series based system and then started selling it for OpenStack. And I keep getting silence when I keep asking people, why are you trying to sell this for OpenStack? Did we really only lose 3 in train, or do I have more to remove?
Well, we've had a lot of talks about marking them
Yeah,
unsupported, but I don't know.
Oh,
how
that's
many,
right.
I don't know how many we've actually removed.
That's true.
I guess it might be interesting in the unnamed unicorn release of how many we actually have to remove. Are people
Yeah.
responding to that stuff at all when we mark things unsupported?
Let's save that for the end of the day,
Yeah, sure.
or maybe at the bar, where I'm not being recorded. Sorry, was that out loud? We should see if we can get hashtag unnamed unicorn trending.
The name vote ended yet that they were doing the other day?
Normally I jump in on that right away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the vote's still going on because I'm just
I
like,
think it is. For some reason, I'm thinking the 23rd was the. But I don't know.
Part of me is just wondering to see if Updawn is the one that gets voted in.
This is the same thing that happened.
One of the lists I saw.
I didn't even notice that one.
I don't remember seeing that
I
one.
voted
either.
for Uma Thurman. I would have
That's
gone
what I
for
did
Upton.
too. I did the
Yeah.
same thing.
Missed that.
There's one that looks.
Did the same exact thing.
Is there literally one that looks like Uma Thurman?
No,
It was just Uma.
Is the name of the release.
Oh, well, I'm okay with that one.
This is the same exact thing that happened with Ice House. That's why it was called Ice House. Because they couldn't find something in Hong Kong with an I, and there was a street that said Ice House.
Yeah.
It was the same exact thing.
Yeah, at one of the lists I saw had Updong as a list. And I
Updog has to win.
I don't see it.
Viagra for your data center. Yeah, that was a much needed.
No, I think if that was on the list, I'm pretty sure that will win.
I was just looking at the list going, which of these can I actually pronounce? Right?
Yeah, it sounds like Uma's maybe the best choice. Uma or Oprah? Wow, we've digressed. How did that happen?
Yeah, I'm back to the straight matrix. I heard a lot about revert to snapshot for a little while.
That was,
because it mostly works for the drivers that did it anyway.
and that's on the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
That active HA one's looking pretty sad there at the bottom. Oh, there's actually 2 on that. Didn't know that we actually had a second one.
One of the 2.
Ceph is the main one.
Okay.
Macro sand, which I think we just merged, right?
Yep. I see. I immediately stopped working.
Yeah.
Two out of ones that remain ain't bad. Okay.
So
I
one
don't.
of So what would be good to add to this list? Like, do we have any idea?
The ones that I had thought of are the manage unmanage. I don't know of anything else unless there's other information that we want to capture in there.
Like there might be more stuff around replication, but I'm not 100% sure. There is stuff for replication, right? Because drivers have to implement failover, right? Which is separate from the replication thing. Or is it not for the purposes of this chart?
Is replication on there right now?
It's on there, but it's hard to know exactly what that means, since replication has been through like 4 different phases of being like partly done. I'm not 100% sure I would know like what it actually means that somebody wrote true.
Vendor drivers that support volume replication can report this capability to be used by the scheduler, allowing users to request replicated volumes. So that really doesn't help. Such drivers are also then able to take advantage of Cinder's failover and failback commands.
If the driver implements it.
Okay.
Maybe all those drivers did implement that. I don't actually know.
Okay.
But I think the RBD driver had like the replicate part for a while and not the failover failback part.
Okay.
If I remember. Maybe it was the only one doing that. I don't know.
Okay, so that sounds like something that I should at least look at. All right. Anything else you want to cover there, or should we?
People ask for, information that seems like we could add it here. We can do it later.
Okay.
I feel like if there was anything that was obviously missing, we probably would have heard about it.
Probably.
So iSCSI Ceph driver.
Yeah, that thing.
That thing.
Are we on that?
Yeah.
I've been trying to set up a test for it, and then had the world come crashing down around me in other ways. So I haven't gotten further than the last time I talked to you about it.
Okay.
Which, what a shit show.
Oh, God.
Getting it set up properly.
Jesus. So.
Yes, my son. It's such a good idea.
Yes, and the driver works. As far as I know, I haven't done an extensive amount of testing against it, but the majority of the code is just an extension of the normal RBD driver. Like all the provisioning and replication and all that stuff, I didn't touch any of that. All I did was I extended that and created an initialize connection and terminate connection, anything associated with actually attaching the volume. Because everything else should be done exactly the same.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to do.
Yep. So I got that in place, got that put up, and then had to go through a lot of calisthenics to try and get a CI job put in place for it.
And that's what I last remember seeing was, it seemed like there was a lot of difficulty around just how do you actually install, not even the Cinder stuff, just
the Ceph iSCSI toolchain.
Right, because it needed some new dependencies. And, yeah.
So I had it all working.
Yeah.
And I had a patch up, but I did it all from how the Ceph documentation talks about how to install this toolchain stuff.
Right.
And you install it from the GitHub repo.
Yep.
That's the official documentation that says go clone the repo, do a pip install, because there is no packaging for it.
Yeah.
SUSE is the only packager that has packaged all of it up. There's like 4 libraries that are required, plus, obviously having a Ceph cluster deployed.
Yeah.
But not only that, but there's TCMU Runner, there's a bunch of other libriraries that the Ceph iSCSI stuff needs.
And all that stuff is so new that just nobody's packaged it. For
Nobody's
most
packaged it
distros.
for Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Nobody's packaged it for CentOS or Fedora, Red Hat.
Well, that was the part that threw me off. Was it?
I couldn't believe it.
I read the docs and it kind of made it sound like it was in CentOS, but then you go look and it's like not
It's
all
not
there.
there.
Yeah.
So luckily, the problem was I got a -2 on my CI job because they said, well, you're installing from unreleased software. I'm like, that is not true. Those packages, those GitHub repos have releases. Nobody's just taken that release and put it into an RPM or dev or whatever you want to call it. So they utterly rejected that argument.
Were they
saying
wanting
it was unreleased software?
Were they wanting it to end up in like the Ubuntu Cloud Archive or something? Or?
They wanted to be able to do apt-get install,
Yeah.
and that just didn't exist. So
Yeah, because
luckily,
you actually had to compile one of them, right?
yeah, one of them has to be compiled.
Yeah.
So why was I getting conflicts with a previously installed thing on my Ubuntu image?
So, God, this thing is so complicated.
Yeah.
So there is an RPM Python project, module, package, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that is where you're getting conflicts from because it was old.
Okay.
And so the TCMU runner and the Ceph iSCSI utils needs a newer version of that. And it was completely incompatible with the old one. That's why I uninstalled it, manually installed it like the instructions that Ceph docs say to do, because you're running Ubuntu or something.
And I must have missed that in the instructions somewhere?
No, it's not obvious. No, what you did was right, but there was just an incompatibility. And this is part of the problem with it, is that all of the packaging for some of the stuff has been packaged, but not every single one of the dependencies has been packaged so that we all work together. SUSE has. And so that's why I started down the path of, okay, I'm going to throw away all of my Ansible code and Bash code to git pull, git clone, pip install, all that stuff, and just go and enforce that the CI job has to run on Leap. Well, the problem with that is that DevStack does not consider Leap a first-class citizen. So you have to say force equals yes to do even a DevStack stand-up on Leap.
Oh, yeah.
And not only that, that's somewhat easy to overcome.
Yeah.
But the plugin for DevStack that knows how to do Ceph stuff, that didn't work at all on Leap 15 or below.
Yeah, because we've only done that on Ubuntu and CentOS so
Yeah.
far. Yeah.
So that's where I got eventually bogged down and stuck, is because the tooling there on Leap, it had to be Leap 15.1, and the only way to get, so the Ceph plugin was just a shit ton of old style Ceph deployment code. So you basically have to deploy Ceph cluster in that plugin. So I basically started down the road of rewriting that to make it work on Leap, and it turned into a nightmare.
Yeah, that's what we used to deploy Ceph for all the CI jobs we run.
So the only thing that worked was using Ceph deploy. And that is what it is. And all the old code in that plugin didn't work at all. It was completely incompatible. I couldn't even get a cluster to stand up correctly. So I started going through the process of using Ceph deploy to manually deploy a cluster just to see if I can get it to work before I actually started working on that plugin and rewriting it basically. And then this was like a week or two before the deadline. I'm like, shit, I gotta get all this done.
Okay.
So that's where I got bogged down, is that, and that still needs to be, something needs to be resolved there. Either we need to get Canonical to release versions of all of the toolchain of dependencies for Ceph iSCSI in Debian packages, or I continue going down the Leap 15.1 and rewriting the whole Ceph plugin for DevStack. Driver works, but it's the CI that became a nightmare.
Wait, where have we heard this before?
So at that point, we started kicking off our next version of our release schedule, and I'm dragged off onto that, and I haven't spent any time working on that.
Is this driver something that SUSE is interested in doing?
Yeah, we want to have, one of our main products is based off of Ceph. It's SUSE Enterprise Storage, and that's basically Ceph. And we want to be able to do ironic proof volume in Ceph. So there's a good use case for me to actually spend time in this, but I've got to work on a bunch of other shit too. So all that code is up there. Someone needs to rewrite the plugin and rewrite it using Ceph deploy or some other mechanism that is blessed by the Ceph community that works everywhere.
Wait, why do we
need a Ceph cluster?
Why do we need to do that?
The plugin. So the plugin basically what it does is it deploys a full-blown Ceph cluster.
Yeah,
I've
The
worked on it.
DevStack plugin?
The DevStack plugin.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on it a good bit.
But that code doesn't work on Elite 15.1 at all.
Right.
It completely falls down. It doesn't work. So what I found was Ceph deploy does work.
I think Ceph deploy is like officially deprecated though, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that's
Because that's not the tool anymore. Now what they tell you to use is Ceph Ansible, I think.
Oh, yeah. Can you do that
Does
on
that
a
mean-
single node, though?
I don't know. I mean, I've never tried to do it.
I've had enough trouble getting it to work on multiple nodes, let alone.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that work on Ceph Ansible stuff, but I
Okay.
have no idea how many of them are targeting single node deployments because that's kind of it's not usually what it's aiming at.
So if Ceph Ansible is the way to go, and that's supposed to work across.
I mean, that's the claim of Ansible. I had no idea though. Like,
Okay. Ansible,
I mean, I was looking around here trying to find like the status of this whole iSCSI thing, like in the Red Hat storage product, and I even see bugs in here saying like we're pulling in fixes from SUSE related to some of this deployment.
Good job. So I filed bugs upstream in GitHub against these projects saying,
Yeah.
why don't we have a Pipey release at least? There's not even that for these, and they're pure Python.
Or what? Kind of, those libraries?
Yeah, the Ceph iSCSI utils. I forgot the name of them. Because it's been so
Well,
long
Ceph
since
has
I worked
always been kind of separate because they don't ship PyPy releases for like RBD and Rados either. I don't think.
Well, those I kind of understand because
Yeah.
they need to be compiled.
Right.
They're Python C combos, and that
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that on PyPy, but so these other things, which is the Ceph iSCSI API and the Ceph iSCSI target,
Yeah.
the target CLI stuff, that's just pure Python, and there's no reason why that can't be released to Python.
Yeah, it's actually based on the same code that we use in the LVM iSCSI target and Cinder. Some of the same infrastructure.
It looks similar too when you run the clients. So I filed bugs against those, and I haven't looked in a couple of weeks to find out. No, I don't think anybody's responded and replied to any of those issues on GitHub because I was getting to the point where, like, well, fuck this. I could just put up a patch and pull request and fix it so that way someone could do release the Pipey because they have releases, but they're tarballs on GitHub, and I'm like, come on, I don't understand that. But, so that whole thing needs to be resolved, and someone needs to do a packaging of this stuff for CentOS.
Well, I was trying to look because I suspect that somebody is doing it for the Red Hat product stuff, which means it will probably trickle out into. I don't know what the CentOS equivalent would be, where stuff like our Ceph storage product would land, but it's probably going to land somewhere.
And I wish I could spend time working on it. I mean, I'd much rather be doing that than.
The tricky thing about the CentOS stuff is I think, when we bought Ink Tank, I think they used to be a very Ubuntu-centric shop. And so I think they've spent years like tooling stuff into Red Hat's world. Things like,
Going from Debians to RPMs is a big change.
yeah, stuff like that we do for shipping products, but as far as infrastructure for upstream packaging and stuff, like I don't know if anybody's driving that kind of stuff or not. Because I don't know what upstream community would be driving like the iSCSI stuff for this.
Luckily, the way we do all of our builds, it's on the open build system that we have, and people can push up their own RPM specs and build it, and it gets included in the openstack-cinder.
Yeah.
And then we decide which one of those we want to pull into Sleeve, which is the official customer distro.
What's Leap?
Leap is equivalent to Fedora.
Yeah.
Okay. Does it stand for something?
It's just a name.
Okay.
It's just the latest. It used to be called something else.
Sleep. Because it was something else back in it used to just be OpenSUSE,
It
didn't it?
was just OpenSUSE. Then they follow the model of a long term
Who wrote
and
it?
a short term.
Who wrote? I agree about DevStack plugin doesn't work. Like
I
we
think
use
that's
it
for
all the
shop.
time. Like it's used now.
It's used in our CI. Yeah.
There are people actively maintaining that plugin, so I don't know what that means, but anyway,
Okay, so it doesn't work on.
it doesn't work on SUSE because no one's
Okay.
done work to try to make it work on SUSE.
Yeah,
So
and
that's-
DevStack will complain if you try and run stack on it. It says this is the officially unsupported, but if you let it run, it does run. It does
Yeah.
work. Because that's what I was doing on developing all this. If I had another month of time, I could probably get it all finished.
So I was hoping that there would be some interest in this effort from Red Hat's side, but I poked around a while ago and never really came up with much.
I'm still interested in it from a Lenovo standpoint.
Well, I'm
but
really interested in it from a upstream center standpoint, but
Yeah, me too.
because I think it's actually a really useful thing to have.
Yeah.
And I was trying to look around here and figure out if this stuff is in our upcoming Ceph product or not, and I'm still not sure. But
does this have CSI implications at all? I don't fully understand.
as far as what,
Like, does it help or not, or is it not of interest in that environment? Or they've already got direct interaction with Ceph?
I'm sure there's a whole team of people at Red Hat somewhere that have been looking at that stuff. I don't know really.
But yeah, still for the ironic boot from volume case.
Yeah.
This solves that. I mean,
Yes.
they're supposed to, knock on wood. It's just a matter of getting the whole iSCSI libraries and dependencies and all that crap in place. One of the first things I ran into is the kernel version, because there had to be kernel modifications to allow some of the stuff to work, and I think that's available across the board after 4.16.
It sounds like it was, bootstrapped in the Ceph world as a thing, but nobody's really gone.
Nobody's
run
followed
with it.
through on it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's just new enough that nobody's really packaged it up and done much with it yet.
Yeah.
And I have to assume that there's people actively doing that somewhere, but I don't know really.
I don't know either.
So the takeaway is we need more time. It's not going to come in train, obviously. That ship sailed.
Yeah.
You're still peripherally working on it when you can,
When I can.
and we'll readdress for a named unicorn.
Yeah, and it's a CI issue. It's not a driver issue. Anyone should be able to pull the driver down and install it. And have to follow a whole shit ton of instructions on how to set up the Ceph side of things, which is a pain in the ass.
Which I need to go back and try again, because
was doing it half-assed in between other things. I need to find a day where I can turn off my other forms of communication and just try it.
Yeah, you have to start from GitHub with all of the repos that they have for their rely on packaging. That is your best chance of getting it to work.
Yeah, I will say that I think some of our Manila people have been doing some work on the Ceph DevStack plugin to get it up to the better support for the most current
Ceph
version of
FS.
Ceph. Yeah, for CephFS and getting it onto Nautilus or whatever they're at now.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that will help with this or not.
I was kind of horrified looking at the plugin.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much
I know it's
for
been around for a
development
long
environment
time, so
stuff.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
it's just. I would. If Ceph Ansible works, then maybe I can start looking at that.
It's not terribly hard to set up. The Ceph Ansible. I've done it, so it's got to be pretty easy.
I'm familiar with Ansible. I mean, our whole product is based off of Ansible, so pain and suffering that is Ansible is tolerable. Better than Chef.
Yeah,
So
I was going to
that's
say, would you
actually-
rather be in the kitchen with the chef?
So that's actually listed as a feature in Ceph Nautilus, like in the Ceph upstream release.
What feature?
iSCSI target
iSCSI.
management. So maybe if we get everything at least running on Nautilus, maybe it's a little bit better, but I don't know.
I think that's what I was using.
Yeah.
So the hope is to get it done this year sometime, so it's ready for the next release. I just need some time to dedicate. If I can spend an hour or two a day or whatever, I guess I can mess around with Ceph Ansible and see if that's easier. But I think it's going to get to the point of rewriting a portion of that DevStack plugin, and there's so much in there that I'm like, I don't know what this shit is, so I just kind of like gloss over it. And I think a lot of it's the Ceph FS stuff. And I don't know.
Yeah, and it's got the ability to deploy Ceph inside of containers. And
Yeah, there's a lot of container stuff in there too, and I was like, Jesus. I don't know how to rewrite that whole thing and leave that other stuff in there at the same time, just for Ceph iSCSI on loop.
I guess it's entirely possible that we would just have a whole separate DevStack plugin for the iSCSI thing. It just
I
does
guess we could.
a whole different environment setup.
I could try that route, just ignore this whole thing, and use the same mechanism that
Yeah,
we
I
use.
mean, that might be the easiest way to do it. I don't know.
It'd probably be cleaner. Still have to deploy Ceph, still have to deploy all the iSCSI tool chain and all that stuff. That's not a bad idea. All right, I'll start looking at Ceph Ansible and see how far I can. Unfortunately, we don't use it.
I think it's used in the. I think it's used a lot in the AAA world, actually.
Yeah.
So there should be a lot of OpenStack knowledge somewhere around that.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure they use Ceph Ansible and AAO to deploy.
We were able to build up an automation suite based on it pretty quickly.
Okay.
So, and if I might be able to answer questions if you have them around that,
Okay.
maybe.
Hoping there's a package for it too, or is this all pure Python?
No, it's
No,
It's
that's
in-
not Python. It's Ansible.
but there's
which
a
is mostly Python.
Is it possible then to be able to do Ceph Ansible, Ansible with Ceph Ansible with 21 on Ansible?
I don't know. I haven't ever looked at it enough to really know what it does.
The OpenStack Ansible.
Yeah, is it possible? I could do that.
I
didn't have infrastructure is the only one.
I tried that once on one of my servers, and it was an experience.
Yeah.
The OpenStack Ansible seems to have an assumption that it has multiple systems to work
Yeah,
with,
that's the
and it
thing.
gets weird when you
Yeah.
try to do all at once. So most of my problems, well, it could have been the system I was on because I was trying to run virtualized on a 3650 so that I would not have to blow my whole box away if I made a mistake. But then the file system performance was just horrible because they make all of these virtual flat files to simulate space for glance and Cinder.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and so it was functional, but it was so slow that it's like, booting a VM took 10 minutes. I'm like,
Well, Ceph now has all the blue store stuff too, which might help a lot instead of just file store. I think that was a Nautilus. Nautilus or Nautilus. But they finally have like a block storage backing layer that's not XFS files. Always have.
So they do have support for Nautilus. They have a 4.0 for Ceph Ansible supports Nautilus.
Nautilus, dude.
Works on Leap.
Leap of faith.
On Red Hat, no, they say on Red Hat do this, on CentOS do this, on Ubuntu do that, and that's it. So this may not even work on that. So.
I mean, I don't know much about Ansible, but I thought the whole point of it was that it was supposed to translate across platforms. And
Problem is that you need to have the packages to install, and what repos do you get those from, and it's different than. Okay.
Okay.
So I
So,
had to do, explore Ceph Ansible for a fresh DevStack plugin for Ceph iSCSI. And get that to work, and everything else should.
the spinning up the new plugin thing is actually really easy because I did
Yeah.
that for NFS. Dude, that part's not hard. It's just all the other stuff that's hard.
Yeah.
say that again, to investigate.
Ceph Ansible for
Ceph.
applying. Ceph iSCSI. As a new DevStack plugin.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks for the update on that. Sorry, glad the driver wasn't hard.
The driver wasn't hard. I mean, I know I had to write a whole client as well, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
So,
I made a lot of big assumptions in there, but it worked, so I had as quickly. Yeah. The client talks to the Party iSCSI library, which was written so that way all of the iSCSI nodes in the cluster itself can stay in sync. So there's API calls in there for creating a volume, creating an export, removing an export, all the things that the Cinder driver needs. But it wasn't written for someone else to be using it in this way. So I hope they don't decide to completely break and change the API. But the good thing, but then that leads me to why I wrote the client separate from the driver, because then we can update that if they change that API and keep the Cinder usage of that client the same.
did we get the issue that you could only see volumes that were created from the CLI
resolved?
I think I did.
Okay. Because that was one thing that John Bernard was going to look at, but never got to. So,
Yeah, the API that the client calls is a little finicky. You have to have the volume there first before you say create it. So the API with the target CLI stuff on for Ceph iSCSI, the API call to do an export of it, you have to create the volume. And it is smart enough to know that if the volume is already there, it uses that. But if it doesn't, then it will create it. And if you do that, that's bad because Cinder should have already created it before it started to export it.
Oh, okay.
So that shouldn't ever happen.
Okay.
Because Cinder would never call the driver to export a volume that
It hasn't been created yet. Okay. That makes sense. Cool.
all right. Well, thank you for continuing to work on that.
There you go.
You demand.
Try it.
Okay. So, I said we would wait till the end of the day for this. How to deal with third-party irregularities, third-party CI driver irregularities. Do you want to move on and move that to later?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay. So,
So this is around figuring out, are people running the right stuff?
yeah, are people running the right stuff? What do we do with the fact that, half of our drivers are going to be removed due to Pi3 incompatibility? So you asked response. Let me.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering if when we poke people so far via emails or marking things unsupported, I don't see a whole lot of what actually happens after that.
Yeah. So let me pull up the list here. So cloud-based was a misunderstanding, so I think we're good there. Dell
This is
EMC,
the Python 3 page.
yeah. So Dell EMC is in good shape. Jitsu, I don't believe I've heard back from. Edvig responded and they're working on it.
That guy was on IRC again today, trying to get people to release stuff. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on there like every day lately, trying to move that thing.
That's good.
HPE is not compliant. I have not heard anything from them.
Is left hand still a thing?
No, that driver should be removed, deprecated and removed next year.
Also, your left hand link there goes to some Huawei patch.
Oops. Okay. Wait, I thought you fixed that.
I thought I told you about it.
What was it?
That link you just mentioned.
Oh,
Oh, well, but this was the last one where it had passed.
I haven't even heard about left-handed forever.
Yeah,
Surprised.
even when I was still at HP, they said it was the end of life in it. replacing with 3-par, basically.
Yeah, because I mean, I hear tons about 3-par, but I haven't heard about left-handed.
Yeah, and I've got a note here that it's going to go away, so
well, you were going to propose the patch to remove it.
I thought I did I not?
I don't know.
Oh crap, I don't remember.
Okay.
But 3-par, I have not seen Python 3 compliance, anything from them. HPMSA got fixed.
Well, 3-par is at least going to get hit by the OSP guys eventually too.
Okay.
So it doesn't work, Pi3?
Hmm?
The CI itself doesn't work?
The 3-par?
It is not testing Python 3.
Oh, it's not testing.
Right. Right.
All right, I have some arms to twist
Okay.
because we still have a relationship with HP.
Huawei's working on it for their two. IBM, I mean, I even had the foundation go and send them angry grams and have not heard anything back. So,
Across like 5 different IBM drivers.
Yep.
Wow. I think at least one of them would
So-
be active. But
To me, that seems like that's gonna. I mean, one, it hurts me because we have a lot of IBM hardware customers. Now that IBM has Red Hat, but there have been at least 4 or 5 emails to contacts in IBM, and we've gotten radio silence.
I wonder.
Which the guy who owned that whole storage group was never a fan of OpenStack. So
Well, we used to certify some of those on OSP. I wonder if we still do any of them.
What's the situation now? So you guys make the hardware for the IBM stuff, is that right? Lenovo owns all that stuff, really? Or is that not true? It's fine. No, I'm sorry.
So,
okay. Okay. No, I'm just trying to figure out because I was thinking the same thing that they might decide
well,
that
'cause-
since we're
So-
open source people,
yeah,
that we should do everything.
but a lot of it is that you have a lot of X series customers, which are now ThinkSystem
Okay.
customers of Lenovo that have StoreWise,
Okay.
AIX. You know, I've had multiple people in GPFS. We still have a huge business around GPFS, and the people who are supporting that driver have disappeared off the face of the earth. And the GPFS driver does not work containerized, so it broke with OSP 13.
What about users of these platforms? Like, are there customers running this stuff with OpenStack?
There are, but they haven't upgraded to the point where they found out that their drivers are not working.
Right.
So there was
They're all running like Newton or something.
yes. And the person, I had one person in Denver approach me and go, "Hey, I'm trying to upgrade and my GPFS driver doesn't work anymore. And I've tried to contact IBM and I haven't heard anything. And then I tried and didn't hear anything." So I've been avoiding it, but I need to mark everything for them unsupported in the next week or two.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So we on our product we certified a couple of IBM drivers a while ago, I think.
but that would have been on what, Queens?
I don't know, it's super hard for me to figure out. I think it was like before Queens.
Okay. And if you certify GPFS, I don't think it will work once you guys went to the containerized
I think it was
Cinder environment.
looks like maybe it was XIV and S8000. don't know. In customer stuff I look at, I don't think I've seen much IBM stuff, so I have no idea.
Need to double check on Infratrend because I think they said they've got results out there. I couldn't find them. The Mellanox driver is not Pi 3 client. NEC is now working on it.
Is that a Mellanox driver? Is that what's with links? Mellanox link goes to some totally unrelated thing too.
Well, the links go to the last patch where it was successful.
Is the Mellanox one a oh, that's that ICER thing, right?
Oh yeah. NetApp is good. Nexenta is not. I thought I'd heard back from them. Double check on that. Okay, so it looks like Pure Storage fixed theirs. Bovite fixed theirs. Pool's working on reworking theirs. So Synology. The Software Factory.
The whole thing that came out of Novance. It's like a whole, even though what it sounds like, it's a whole tool set for building software that they've used for some open source projects. Never heard of people using it for openstack-CI.
So I have heard back from a number of these. They've started working on it, but we're still talking about removing 15 or unsupporting 15, 16 drivers.
Ouch.
Hey, StoreOps now says they do 3.7. Well, that's not as bad as it sounded originally.
Take that back. I guess we're down to 8 that are. Well, I gotta go through and count this again, but it's better than it used to be.
I'm concerned about the zone manager ones.
Yeah. So
Because we can't really just go ditch all the zone managers, right? So what are we supposed to do there?
That'd be the end of Fiber Channel.
Right. Yeah, that's
So I got a long email back from Angela. So she still responds to me, so that's good.
she's a Brocade or Cisco?
Brocade. Let me see if I can find that.
Do they have functioning CI stuff in Python too?
No. Okay, I had been working, so this was as of August 5th. I had been working diligently on this and worked through some issues, was on vacation, so started back at it now. As we still use DevStack, not DevStack Gate, we are subject to the daily breakages of DevStack. For some time it was not working with Pi 2.7, with one of the libs, can't remember which one. I can now use Pi 2.7 with DevStack, but first time DevStack installed Pi 3 was fine until today. Now there's an issue with Neutron lib. DevStack. Now she's facing an issue in Neutron during attach where zoning is successful, but then OSBrick initiates a host scan which fails with an invalid argument error. The error each time I get DevScac installed correctly and try attach operation, trying to figure out what the issue is. Sure, there's something with the host I'm using, but this is a little beyond my scope of knowledge.
So they have like one particular fiber backend that they use to try to build this CI thing.
That would be my assumption.
Do we know what it is?
ProLiant DL380 G7 is the user.
That's a
Oh, that's
server,
the
right?
that's the server. Oh, you were copied on this, Brian.
Trying to find it.
Angela Smith.
I did see, yeah, that she was. I stopped after seeing all the problems.
Well, yeah, and I got halfway through the mail, and then it was like, oh, and I should have forwarded this on probably to you guys who have deeper zoning manager experience, like Walt.
To get them to
Things are
test
happening.
5.3. Yeah, this should happen.
Are you WA boring at your email address?
My personal or
Whatever you would want me to send.
Whitboring at HENNA.
Way boring.
Yes, but
This is kind of a stupid question, but for end users or deployers that deploy fiber channel stuff, do most of them use Cisco Brocade Zone Managers, or are they doing some manual nonsense without one?
it's a mix. There's some people that refuse to have the Cinder Zone Manager touch their switches
So
because
that
they
means they manually configure it all and just do it. Yeah.
and that was part of the reason why we had that NSP patch against the three-part driver, because the driver, if it all it can do, because it knows nothing about the fabric in between and how it's connected, so the best it can do is tell the three-part, hey, export this volume across all of your ports over here to this system over here.
Right.
Well, it just so happens that the third port is the only one that actively works, but the driver picked the first one, and so it would never work. So we had to add a feature to allow the administrator to configure which one of his ports works in this case where they don't want to use the zone manager, and they don't want to use multipath, and so
I would think that most people that want to use fiber would want to use multipath.
I would think so too. Yep.
Seems strange.
It is very strange.
Because why buy a bunch of fiber gear if you're not going to do that kind of stuff anyway? Like it's.
Yeah, and why buy $1 million storage system and not use all of its features? I don't get that either, but whatever. And then there's the other group of people that say, yeah, we'll let you manage it because we have a switch specifically designed for our OpenStack deployment.
Right.
And so we don't really care because then they don't have to manually tweak it at all.
We have a lot of customers that use fiber stuff, but I've never looked into how they actually build it out.
Deploy it, build it out.
Yeah. A lot of our real big customers from quite a while back have done. Well, I've never looked a whole lot at how they actually do it.
What happened?
We'll see what happens.
I guess Rajat fell asleep on his keyboard. I agree. um, okay, so you sent an email to the 3-part guys.
Yes, through my channel, the 3-part, because they said don't contact them directly because they know who you are and they'll never not bug you about things. So I have to go through a couple managers.
Oh,
I was told not
You-
to talk to them directly because they know me.
so do they think that you just don't exist anymore?
Yeah,
You're in the developer protection program?
evidently.
Boy, I hope they don't watch this video.
Like if you talk to them directly, they'll never stop bugging you. I'm like, okay, thanks for the heads up.
We have a celebrity in our midst.
So the Cisco's manager job runs one test, it looks like.
Yeah, but the Brocade's
Same way.
Is it?
They do attach, detach, and I think that's it with zone management enabled.
And it takes over 5 minutes for the test to run. That's really weird.
For single attached.
Yeah, it's test, attach, detach volume. Takes 350 seconds. It's not comfortable.
It depends on. So I know at one point the only way you could talk to one of those switches was over SSH.
Mm.
And that was painfully slow. They might have updated to HTTP, but you have to configure the zone manager to use that if it has that. So their switches they have may not even support the rest of it. I heard years ago.
Oh, and they're using LEMC Unity. Tested.
But when I get to the building calls that are not for me. Okay, so am I going forward with the mass unsupporting of I3 uncompliant drivers?
Yeah.
All right.
That'll help me twist arms too.
Okay.
Having that happen.
And we're not doing a special unsupported, but I will have a release note that clearly states that this is due to lack of Pi3 support, which is subject to removal in the next release.
Do you I3 only?
Don't think so.
I think it might be.
I
try
can never
to- I
remember. I always forget.
I do too, but
I think it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's going to be after,
Which is-
because the end of life is January.
Yeah, so 2020 is a pipeline.
Yeah, so the idea was the first release after, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be.
Backports are going to be
Yeah, it's gonna-
interesting. Going to have to add
Yeah,
Pi2
and I
support
was
to
pushing
everything
for this
to be
little
backported.
backward policy.
Yeah, now all the backports are
All right, I don't forget that, man.
now all the backports are going to be like add Python 2 support to this.
Oh God.
Does it work with Python too? Well, I was just looking at the Hedvig driver. The changes they made to make it run with Python 3 was they removed all this coding strings as UTF-8.
Oh yeah, I looked over that one, and that
I'm
was
wondering what's going to happen if you run it on Python 2 now.
hard to know.
Yeah, anyway, right. That's the other thing we have to worry about with everybody running their CI in Python 3 that we don't know if
Yeah, we'll probably have to keep LVM and Ceph running on
to just
well, Ceph's not even running on 2 now. might want to add a Ceph Python 2 job. Just to make sure it keeps working.
How the gate job for 2.7 failed and gate check should have consequences, right?
I think there are, so gate checks are only going to catch driver changes that are actually run.
Oh,
So,
sure, that's true.
Yeah,
And it doesn't run that, so you guys
Yeah.
ISO.
yeah, so it's a,
Because yeah, it doesn't run. Yeah, you really don't know. And it probably won't. That's right.
I was looking around trying to find like the official OpenStack
There-
Python 2.3 status thing that would answer like when does 2
there's
go
a-
away.
actually, I've got a link to it on that, the third party driver.
I mean, I found a few pages, but none of them are clearly yelling
No, I
at
have
me.
the, there's
like,
one that specifically lays out the timeline.
yeah, I was thinking there was one somewhere. Oh, here, Python 2 deprecation timeline.
There it is.
This was last updated 14 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, this shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone.
No, it's no surprise. Okay, so they're going to drop Python 2 at the beginning of you. Okay.
Okay. Wow.
Which at the beginning of you.
Beginning of the year.
You did get a name.
It did.
Yeah, Uma came in second.
Dang.
Ah,
What did
tell
it
me
do?
it's up down.
No, Uptown was. I don't know where you saw that. I would happily tell you it was Uptown. It's like Usuri or something like that.
Oh, that one was okay too.
I never saw this.
I am Googling.
Usuri beat Uma by, it was like 115 to 101 or something.
Must include up down. Dang it.
It also,
All right.
it also says we can't drop Python 2 before you.
Or is it right?
Like, you have to keep doing it, even if you don't want to.
I could have sworn that was one of the names.
It may have been at one point. It's
I know it had. No, find it some other time. OpenStack unifies infrastructure. Did you know that?
I didn't hear it.
That's considered light reading, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to be the PTL who goes and cuts the project in half, it sounds like.
Well, it's
No,
not
so-
half
so-
anymore.
In a third.
Well, so according to our policy, though, they can still fix stuff as long as they do it before the RC. But
True.
that's pretty quickly after
And
milestone 3.
And the driver won't actually be removed until you.
Yeah.
And if there are people, the thing that scares me is how many people are back on Queens or Rocky and they're going to update in 3 years and throw a shit fit back.
Right.
The driver doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Because, okay, sure, we put the deprecation in, but
We need to backport it.
I mean,
To go find people with running Queens and rip it out of there for installation.
warning, this is now removed.
I have kind of made that argument for some of the upgrade check stuff. That for them to really be useful, we really should probably backport some of them. And I don't think we've really dove into that, but
That's an excellent straight man into my next
I don't even know
topic.
what the next topic is.
Appropriate upgrade checks.
Oh,
So, well, just to continue my thought,
Okay.
the whole concept of how these work doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because it's like if you want to upgrade to the unnamed unicorn, you have to install it and then run the code in it to tell you if you want to upgrade to it, which seems ridiculous when most of these checks are simple enough that you could write the check and then backport it to the previous release and then run it there to find out what it's trying to tell you. And it may be that I'm just missing something about, maybe people love pip install Cinder run upgrade check or something, but it seems strangely structured to me to assume that they're going to pull the new version of Cinder and run it to find out if they should upgrade to it. Like the whole concept seems a little weird.
Go ahead.
No, I don't have.
I mean, I just wonder how many people really want to do that. Like, it seems like a huge pain in the butt thing to do.
I guess
Especially,
the idea was that somebody's going to package it up into a nice tool.
yeah, but then you like run this thing and you get like halfway through your O upgrade and it barfs and says too bad. Like, I mean, that's not a lot better. And I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem very well thought out to me. And there's no reason you couldn't backport most of these things. Or is it because most of them are just looking at certain config values and things like that. And I've been wondering for a while why.
So your idea of backporting would be then
By Sophia,
install it.
just a drop.
Bye, Sophia.
So if you backported it, then you could install it by package. Is your idea?
Well, you could.
Instead of-
Well, if you backported it to a stable release, you could at some point do a minor update of your running cloud and then get all this information out of the checker tool without having to do something that's disruptive. But I mean, maybe there's a theory that there's a non-disruptive way to pull the new version and run it. But I don't know what that really looks like. It sounds kind of hard.
Yeah, I think you could clone GitHub.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't just like run. Maybe you can just run the Cinder upgrade tool. I don't know how much stuff it does. I know somebody tried to load a driver, but that's a whole different thing.
Right.
I thought it was a good idea.
So I don't know.
That's wrong. Yeah, I mean, just
I actually have thoughts on how to do that, but we can get to that.
okay.
But, I don't know. I just wonder why am I the only person that seems to think this? Like I would have thought that people in other projects would have thought through this too. Like I don't know. It seems hard to actually consume for somebody that has a deployment.
Yes, I agree about that. I'm not sure who's been using it.
Well, so far we don't have a whole lot of them. So I mean, probably nobody's really consumed the Cinder ones yet. We've added. When did we start this?
Well, we didn't get it. We got them into
We got 'em-
master after Stein was released, and then we did backport them. So
Yeah.
they're in stable Stein,
Was where the first ones went.
but they're
Because we
about
wrote them for Stein.
right. They're about upgrading to Stein. Right.
So the backport idea I was talking about would have been backporting those to Rocky,
Right.
which we don't have infrastructure for, so we don't have to worry about that. But for the example,
But for the next one, so we could.
so if we wanted to have checks for the U release, the proposal would be to put them into a train update so people can actually run them.
And like the ones that are currently in train should go into Rocky or into Stein.
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on what's in there, maybe. But
Doc page on that should be updated because it always gets.
I think the idea with it was that, you know, people are doing a pre-production install or using a virtual environment somewhere. So they install it and run the checks. Yeah, I know, I don't
yeah,
disagree that it's kind of stupid.
that's the theory that people actually do pip install Cinder. And I have no idea if people do that or not. Really, I mean, maybe they do.
Oh, so you're saying for Red Hat, for instance, if somebody's on OSP 13 and they want to upgrade to OSP 16 and run the checks, that's not, well, but now we have the problem that you really need to put the checks.
I think Alan was actually working on, or he was at least looking at the idea of running these things in O, but I don't remember where that
But at a minimum, it would be better to have them in -1 rather than n.
I would assume. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that have thought about these a lot more than I have, because I haven't really paid attention to this effort very much.
Well, are we able to do this? I mean, Nova was the one that designed it. The upgrade checks.
Yeah, I mean, these are used in a handful of projects now, right?
Well, supposedly they're used in.
Well, everyone was supposed to do the infrastructure support for it as part of the Stein goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Whether people have implemented it, do we know?
the glance contains the thing that says, "Hey, there's a upgrade checker installed." Whatever the default message was.
I mean,
that
is
you
it,
got.
Oh,
is it
okay.
just that Glance didn't actually need one anyway for anything? Or,
I don't remember what the exact.
I mean, maybe it's just that there wasn't really anything interesting to look for.
Yeah, you can always make that argument about glance.
I mean, it's a good thing. It means the service
It,
is,
it just generally works, right?
Yeah.
I would.
I mean, ours have been, driver removal and then like various configuration stuff that we don't
Yeah.
want to support anymore.
Yeah.
We need to check. So the CLI page has 4 checks from Stein and 2 in train mentioned.
Yeah, that's what's in the code right now too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's
That
what I was
sounds
reading over.
We're still in here.
So config option just to make sure that you're using the full class path name. And it checks to see if the policy.json file is in the.
Yeah, those were the
Correct
first
place.
2 that Sean put in. And then I have checks for all the removed drivers. That not listed out there.
Yeah, then there's Windows iSCSI, and then sure none of the volume drivers removed in Stein are enabled.
I didn't add a note on that for train.
There's 2 more in trade.
Yeah, for train, it's the periodic interval configuration option, and then check for use of deprecated cinder.quota.nestedDB quota driver.
So I need to put up a patch for. Yeah,
Remove drivers. Just
because I think I'm doing the check. I maybe just didn't
okay.
make a note out there.
So there's 4 listed in the removed drivers list.
And the other thing, so we also did restore a driver in train that had been at some point.
Possibly.
Just Eric had a question at one point about, can you run these things like on any release on the upgrade checks, or do we have to remove stuff? I told him I thought theoretically, right, you should be able to run these at any point. But if we have drivers getting removed and then getting put back in, that would be false. We'd have to make sure. Well, I guess what we have to do, I'm just thinking about your driver removal code that checks through the list. You may have to put I don't think it says what release the removals. Because if somebody
somebody's upgrading from like Queens to Rocky, and the driver's been removed, they get flagged, and then if they upgrade again, it's getting. So we don't, but the people, I'm not making any sense.
Yeah, I know what you're
You know
trying
what
to
I'm
say.
Okay.
Well, part of it is, do these have some fixed lifetime where after a couple releases, do we just throw away and we assume that they've done what they needed to do?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or do we
what the-
just need them forever? It kind of depends on, I don't know if there's really an OpenStack-wide policy around to like upgrade Windows from one release to another release.
So if the driver was removed and added back in, I think it's okay to remove it from now.
Except it'll be missing from
Potentially the version that they're updating to. But
Well, but
That would
no,
be
no, no,
okay.
no, no, no,
but the
no.
one where it's missing, that release's checks are going to detect it.
Right. And then subsequent checks, it'll be gone. So we should be okay, because we're not going to backport the removal
right.
of the check.
I guess
But it's
part
just
of it is
the check's checking your current configuration file, though.
part of it is whether you can you take like a Cinder Queens installation and upgrade it to you and just do that, or do you? See, I think the way that our product does it, it actually steps through
Each one.
each release. I think.
Do we need to check her?
Probably, because but there's no way to tell the checker just to check. So if you take the new checker, you can't tell it check Stein or check Train. Although you could, because of the way you have it organized.
But it could make it do that if we wanted
Yeah.
to. But that seems like something we'd want to standardize with
Right.
other services too.
Just let me find the Nova page again, because there's a.
So we kind of, were we done with the CI discussion? No, let's finish this
Oh,
and we'll
right,
circle
right.
back to that briefly. Sorry. I'm ADD today.
Nova's upgrade check code is like significantly more complicated.
They introduced it in Okada. Wow. They
I mean,
explicitly
they've
say
got-
check should be able to run within a virtual environment or container.
Well, see, this is
All
one of
that's
the.
required is a full configuration file.
This was the other thing that came up with that one that had a driver in there. Is there's not a lot of guidelines around what you can really do and not do. So the Nova one actually has stuff that hits like an HTTP API, which is far different from the pip install Cinder and just run it idea.
Right.
So we probably do need to figure out like what is okay to actually do in here and not. I'm fairly sure that we don't want to load drivers into it. I guess no one's tried to do anything in the middle of we've got now versus that kind of thing.
So Nova is actually checking against the running endpoint.
So they get a like Keystone client and they hit the placement engine. That's good. Something. They also do some database queries against stuff in the Nova database.
And they said
Stuff.
checks will query the database and potentially REST APIs, but should not expect to run RPC calls. Checks should not require that the Nova compute service is
So
running on a
what
particular
REST
host.
API though? So if the Nova one hits the placement service, does that mean that you have to have already upgraded the placement service to the new release, and then have it say you can't upgrade Nova now? Like I mean, this is what I'm saying about I don't understand how some of this is supposed to actually play out. Because if you're going to different services, then you got a whole bunch of things that could happen. So I'm glad we're just looking at config settings and files so far.
Right.
Oh, they hit the Cinder API from the Nova ones, which is like, so what does that mean? You have to upgrade Cinder before you run the Nova check?
What are they checking for?
To check that it's at some minimum micro version, which is apparently Queens, is what they're looking for. So they could probably get away with that. But kind of more conceptually, it's definitely a bit complicated.
Thanks, Maverick. Was that Charlie that said that? Sorry, Top Gun reference.
I was thinking so, but I don't remember that one.
Girlfriend hadn't seen the movie and made her watch it the other night.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, in hindsight, that is an incredibly cheesy movie. the dog, making a new one. The dogfight scenes were brilliant for their time. The music was good, but the rest of it was just cheesy.
Yeah.
And I had to admit, this last time around watching it, I'm like, oh god.
It's been a lot of years. It's been a lot of years since I've seen that movie.
And she was just like, and for some reason, Tom Cruise's eyebrows, she could not get over them. She was so distracted by them, she could not watch. She's like, somebody needs to plot those in. And she like could not pay attention to the movie. I'm like, okay, stop.
So if the other interesting thing about the fact that Nova pokes Cinder,
Yeah.
I think that means that Cinder can never add a check that looks at Nova to see if Nova can do something. Because then you end up with like, you can't upgrade one before the other. I don't know who's coordinating this. I guess it's just whoever
We need
checks
to add
first.
just to mess that up.
Yeah. Going across projects get interesting for sure. And just, I mean, to be clear, I do think this whole system is a good idea. I think we just haven't really figured everything out yet. So they actually look for Cinder micro version 3.44.
That was a good micro version. Is that when multi-attach was added?
Probably it's the new volume attach stuff.
Yep. That was a good micro version.
I should promote it to a medium version because it's good.
Grande version.
Grande. Someday it'll be a venti version. I remember sitting in the football stadium in Ireland, in Dublin, talking about getting 344 done. Seems like that should have been longer ago, but
yeah,
with the cold wind ripping through the doors. Oh, that was quite the trip.
Yeah, it was. So, appropriate upgrade checks. Do we have, are there upgrade checks that people are wanting to write soonish? Or are we kind of covered already for what we think we're doing?
Oh, well, so the driver check was deemed inappropriate.
Well, so it's not, the concept is fine.
Okay.
It was the implementation that was the problem.
Okay.
Just because I don't think we can have a Cinder CLI that loads a driver and then runs it. I don't think you can even assume that where you run that can even talk to the backend necessarily. It could talk to like the Cinder database or API, but it might not even have access to the storage backend.
Yeah, it seems like that one
it's also just a whole lot of stuff with code could go very wrong because drivers are always loaded by the volume manager, and then we have to write this other thing that kind of pretends to be a volume manager and load a driver. I kind of assume that a whole bunch of weird things might happen when we do that.
Okay.
What they need to do, if they actually want that check in particular, is to put code in the driver that like records something in the database somewhere, and then the check tool can just look for that in the database instead of poking the backend itself. And that would probably be fine if they are concerned about it and want to do that.
We want our drivers to talk to the database.
But they're all doing that anyway already. I mean,
Oh, are they?
yeah.
Not all.
Well, yeah, not all of them, many of them.
Or they could put it.
They could just put it in the driver and log a warning or something that nobody would ever look at. But
Yeah, I mean, there's.
But how are they going to do it? So this particular case was they had to check that the firmware on the storage backend was at the expected level in order for it to be compatible with the new driver.
And if it wasn't, the drivers didn't work, or what was the whole?
Right.
Okay.
And so the upgrade check was, hey, before you update Cinder, you need to update your firmware.
so they need to do an upgrade check that just spits out a message that says, if you're using this driver, then SSH into this thing and get the firmware version, and it's got to be at least this level. Because we can't assume that any connectivity to the thing. And it's only going to apply to those customers who are actually using
But we can assume that they could connect to Cinder database, and we have.
Well, I suppose you have a point there that they could just check and see, is this driver configured? If so, the message would be not a failure, but a warning. Make sure that your storage is at level XYZ.
Yeah, I don't know if making a warning is even like. If someone runs this in the middle of O or something, they're like, that's going to vanish. Like, I think you have to fail for it to actually be assumed that it's going to do anything.
Well, no, because
because
O
warning
is
is not
right.
zero, right?
If O is doing things right, there's zero. There's a non-zero that's non-failure.
Is that a thing that this does?
Yeah, and then there's failure.
Oh, well, in that case, sure.
Yeah, so
Because there's a non-fatal, hey, you should look at something and rerun the check.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
you're right. So for future stuff, I guess they could do that. Although I got to admit, I agree with Walt. I don't know that it's like encouraging. Unless we put together
Encouraging what? I mean,
people
Talking
with-
directly to the database.
well, you don't
and
have to
driver.
talk. I mean, you can have an API call that returns the right thing, and the manager does it or whatever. But
You could put it to a file somewhere too.
I mean, drivers talk to the database all over the place with the objects model stuff already. Like,
Hello, database.
Cinder lib.
I think CinderLib just doesn't use any of this stuff.
Well, there is no database for CinderLib.
Well, there is. I mean, half of
It's a fed
half of what
database.
CinderLib
It's a
is.
shim, which is
I mean, that half of what CinderLib is was implementing a database layer that grabs all the driver talking to the database kind of stuff and shoves it into SQLite or whatever.
yeah.
The fact that we pass objects into drivers everywhere means that you have to have a databasey kind of thing like that. So does for that kind of upgrade check, to say they need to make sure, like, do they say that by putting something in cinder.conf that says I checked this and like don't fail on the check or?
Well, it didn't fail on the check. It was going to just be a warning. It's not like they're not going to be able to upgrade.
Yeah.
The upgrade check doesn't do anything but check and then tell you if you're about to shoot yourself in your foot or not.
Yeah.
Or you've already shot yourself in your foot because you've already installed it and are now running the check. Boy, this hurts. That's
Yeah.
good to know.
But here's why it hurts. I can really specifically tell you. Yeah, I mean, it sounds fine.
Okay. Are there, what, I guess that was the only like case where we had contention as to whether it was appropriate. Are there any other concerns?
I think that's the first time we've had anybody try to write one for a driver, right?
Yeah. Other than me and Sean writing stuff for changes, so.
Most of it in general Cinder.
I haven't put any checks in for unsupported because that one's kind of
Explanatory. It's in the release notes and the driver fails to start and says this is unsupported.
Yeah, although the fact that the driver fails to start means we probably should actually have a check that tells people that's going to happen.
Okay.
Even if it's the warning check, I mean, it'd be nice to tell them that, hey, this is not going to run whenever you. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would need to check, one, if the driver's enabled, and two, if they don't have the run unsupported driver's flag set, then I would.
Yeah, because if they'd already set that, then presumably they already that situation. That seems like one we should run.
It would be basically the same infrastructure as the removed driver,
Yeah.
just with a slightly different check.
Might be. And you could conceivably look at some things that fail, like as startup checks in different drivers, and see if there's anything that promote up from that kind of stuff. But I don't know, because we've got a handful of drivers that do things like soft checks for. Do you actually have this library that we need enough? We conceivably do some of those at this stage too, but I don't know. I don't know. Might be good. I don't know if it's worthwhile or not. Seems like it would be. Like any of the drivers that you would try and import kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although, probably they've already installed that stuff that they're already running.
Yeah.
Cinder,
So that would only be appropriate if they were adding like a new dependency or an upgraded dependency. I haven't, granted I haven't been keeping up on reviews as much lately, but I haven't seen a lot of things come through where I'm like, oh, we need an upgrade check there.
yeah, there's not a lot either. Usually drivers should be trying pretty hard to handle, whoever shows up when they run and code their way out of having to have a manual check for it anyway. When possible.
Okay. So I don't know that we need more discussion on that then. Anybody else?
Well, we didn't really decide too much about this whole factor concept.
Oh,
Whether we think we should try to start doing that or not.
Maybe that's like a forum topic, is to hold over.
It would be good in the forum to maybe find out how people are using
Yeah,
these things,
exactly.
what their just
What kind
general
of stuff's missing?
you know,
What
what
yeah.
the experience has been so
What
far.
didn't get flagged in their upgrade went bad? I wish they had known about.
Yeah.
The Nova page about the upgrade checker specifically says it's just installed, as a command. I guess they just expect you to install Nova and then run it.
It's like there's a lot of hand-wavy assumptions in that theory.
I can propose a forum topic on it, and I know you're not going to be there, but I understand what you're getting at enough to follow up. Watch, it'll be another one like the capabilities check where people are, well, we already did that. And I'm like, where's Eric? I'm still on the plane. Okay. So I will propose a forum topic on that and go from there. Did we have anything to finish up on the third party CI? Oh, the last couple of questions I had on that one were, so when we look through the list of drivers, everybody's running somewhere between 226 and 240 tests.
Yeah.
The purist in me says we should go vet those and make sure they make sense and that they're running the right ones. The realist in me goes, well, if they're running and things are actually passing ever, this is a bonus.
Well, we really need to make sure that they're not excluding tests that we care about, which is very easily possible with things are in a handful of different places in Tempest's structure files. Is there a page somewhere that says run this stuff for CI?
We have a page that says run. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a suspicion that what we tell people to run is probably missing a couple tests that we actually would care about. But I need to go kind of dig into it and see if that's the case. Well, I mean, you get into
We had that whole discussion about making sure people are testing plugins or using
the
plugins.
Cinder plugin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done much looking to see how widespread that is, but that's quite vital for certain features. Cinder third-party CI Irregularities. Tox-E all volume. See, that's not even right, if I remember correctly. I think the page that tells people how to run, I don't think that's even right, because to run the plugin, don't you have to run all plugin instead of all? Yeah, because I don't think this will even run the Cinder Tempest plugin if you do it this way.
What are you doing? What is that? Oh, yeah, I know. What's it doing?
It's taking a time lapse the last 2 hours.
Cool. So I think the wiki page is not even what we wanted to say.
Okay.
Now, which wiki page are you?
It's this wiki Cinder tested third-party drivers,
Okay.
and there's a requirements section.
Right, and then there's the FAQ is what tests do I use?
Yeah, so it says, yeah, and I don't think,
Yeah, I think I tried that recently and it didn't work.
I mean, it probably, well, I don't know if it works or not, but even if it does work, I don't think it's sufficient for what we